Hello, thanks for tuning in. This is Chapter 2 of Love as a Construct, written and read by yours truly. If you'd like to start reading ahead, you can find the link to the story online down below. With that, please enjoy. Chapter 2, A Message About Danger. It was such a hot day. Even the shade boiled, air simmering like the earth had become one giant frying pan, and I was the world's biggest omelet. Or heaviest, anyway. My original specs put me at about the average human height and build, but all my little upgrades ended up making me quite dense. I liked the look, so I didn't want to build out too much, you see. I wouldn't have even minded the sweltering heat, since I have adaptations to convert atmospheric energy to usable power, but it was just another sweltering day in another sweltering week in a sweltering month. My capacitors were fit to bursting, and let me tell you, nothing itches quite like charging a full battery. If I were human, I imagine it'd feel something like living through a never-ending Thanksgiving dinner, where your aunt won't just stop putting more turkey on your plate. Except that you can't stop eating and you have a sophisticated ventilation system that prevents your stomach from exploding and, well, the metaphor fails me. I've never been great at human metaphor. It's that kind of day where I would often fantasize about flying up into the lower Earth atmosphere to cool down, using up some of that excess energy. Just a fantasy, I know. There's no way I could get away with that. Not without global radar networks getting a pinpoint on my location, anyway. So hot I would remain. I sometimes thought about what it must have been like hundreds or thousands of years ago when there existed pieces of land or sky that weren't being constantly watched, recorded, transmitted, sensed, or perceived. There must have been so much quiet in those times. So much cool. A quiet zone. A dead zone. The perfect place for me to hide. I pulled from my database and did some research. A quick scan later and voila! Sure enough, I was only a couple hundred miles from the largest UDZ in Europe, located deep in the heart of the Baden-Württemberg in southwest Germany. Though it took me an extra second, I charted a course without the assistance of satellite imagery and set off. In just over an hour, I had arrived. Seeing it in person, if that verbiage is even appropriate, put all the images I had seen online to shame. From the moment you cross the threshold into that roughly 4-acre chunk of land, you can almost feel it in the air. Something stagnant. Even the heat seemed to recede in fear. Out of curiosity, I made my way towards the obelisk that the zone was centered around. It was an imposing thing, jutting straight up into the sky, carved of some kind of black marble. The sun reflected off of it so strongly that you might fear it would set the foliage on fire. Luckily, there wasn't any. There was nothing but flat, black dirt, charred so cruelly that it honestly sent a chill up my servos to set foot upon it. The vast majority of the landscape was taken up by a network of hundreds of stone blocks the size of houses, pitch black and arranged in a lopsided grid. A ghost town, complete with empty streets, the only population being metal scraps fashioned into spikes which jutted out at irregular and variable angles. I picked my way through the spikes, heading to the monument in the middle. Though they were ever present, they weren't placed in a way such as to block entry. No, they served some other purpose. Before, I had always thought it strange. Unbelievable, quite frankly. Despite fighting about everything else, the humans of the world had unanimously agreed to leave these areas alone. Now that I was taking it in with my own optical sensors, I understood why. This place was like an art installation. But there was nothing subtle about the meaning. Unlike any piece I'd ever seen, this art was desperate to be understood. Everything about this place had all worked to convey one thing: fear. A fear so deep, so encompassing, so whole, that someone in time truly wished from the bottom of their heart that no civilization ever might have to reckon with the cause. I finally approached the spire. Aside from a wide base, it was more or less just a 50-foot tall spear of rock. Carvings almost a foot deep crossed all around the outside edge, about 3 feet off the ground. Languages I had never seen, pictograms of spikes, skulls, and violence. While I found all this vaguely fascinating, what really piqued my interest was what seemed to be a tiny hole. On the eastern side of the monument, underneath the base, so subtle I might have missed it. I approached it, peering inside with my night vision. What I was expecting was maybe a family of raccoons to have made a home there. What I found instead was a very small cave. The countless centuries must have seen it fill with dirt. Curiosity burned within me. When the UDZs across the world had been found and documented in the early 80s, it was decided that even research into them could potentially be dangerous. It takes explicit consent from a majority of the major powers, years of red tape, and an internationally vetted team of experts to even get permission to look into them. I definitely didn't have any of that, but, I figured, me and humanity weren't exactly on good terms right now, you know? And what's the harm in just taking a peek? So, I got to digging. The hole was deeper than I thought. Humans might not know this, but even with a mechanical body, I still get bored and tired, so I often took breaks from the hours of manual labor to analyze the messages carved into the pillar. While official documentation about this place mentions that the messages exist, their actual content was highly classified. What's more, they were written in quite a few different languages by different hands, and not a single one of them matched any known modern or ancient language I had on record. Well, why not a challenge then? I had a moment of satisfaction imagining the raw envy those scientists who designed me would feel if they knew what I had gotten my hands on. The whole experience was grueling. Just the digging and the translating probably took about 2 days, although I did often have to stop and go hide when I detected a plane passing overhead. The hole was much deeper than I thought, and don't get me started about those strange languages. There were 5, and each one seemed to follow completely different laws of grammar and mostly different alphabets. There wasn't enough material to go on. I used all sorts of tricks, but some of them were just so alien, I wondered if they hadn't been chiseled in later as some sort of prank. I was turning them over in my head as I dug, and right about the time I hit something solid 15 feet down, I had an epiphany. One of the languages actually had almost the same grammatical structure as ancient Latin, albeit with a totally different alphabet. Before I doubled back to check, I spent some time digging out the rock that stopped me. It wasn't a rock. It was the front step of what looked to be some deeply buried staircase. I was definitely onto something. I quickly ran back to the top to try a multivariate analysis of the message in almost Latin. Sure enough, before long, I had figured out just one word, which was repeated throughout the message. Danger. Well, I don't know what I was expecting, right? So I let the process run in the background of my mind as I got back to digging. I didn't fully excavate the room, but I got far enough that it was clear what it was. A finely ornate door. This was some sort of, tomb? Something lay buried here. But what? Records of the UDZs date them all the way back to before any human societies were supposed to have existed, so my working theory was aliens. Maybe this was the burial site for some kind of ancient alien radioactive material. I walked back up the slope of dirt to the writing above. Putting together everything I had figured out, I translated it fully. This place is a message. Please pay it heed. Sending this message was important to us. We considered ourselves to be a powerful culture. This place is not a place of honor. No highly esteemed dead is commemorated here. Nothing valued is here. What is here was dangerous and repulsive to us. This message is a warning about danger. The danger is still present in your time as it was in ours. This danger is to the body, and it can kill. The danger is unleashed only if you disturb this place physically. This place is best shunned and left alone. I sat in front of the door for a long time, silently contemplating my choices. The cave was cool, at least a little. It was still well over 120 degrees outside. It was the hottest month on record for the 46th month in a row. Maybe this ancient tomb was made by humanity, after all. It wouldn't surprise me if humanity built something dangerous, something they could not control, then hid it away. It's what they did best. After all, they built me. I don't think I originally planned to do anything. Sure, I was curious, but I only really was there to find a place to lay low for a bit, get out of the sun. I started thinking about what might be behind that door, if it might be cool down there. I was very casual about it. Scans of seismic activity seemed to consistently reveal that all laid behind the door was a solid block of quartz, so maybe this was all some big trick or something. I don't think I believed that, though if you'd asked me at the time, I probably would have said it. After all, scientifically, it seemed impossible that it should have anything behind it. And no matter what sort of physical force I exerted upon it, it didn't so much as chip anyway. I lived in that cave for a couple weeks and, it was kind of a hobby, right? Like, sure, I kept trying, but I never thought it'd actually work. I definitely was working hard at it, don't get me wrong. I invented all sorts of new things, most of which were duds. Gotta do something to keep the mind sharp, Well, anyway, it was as much a surprise to me as it was to you when I actually cracked the thing.
Please, just stop. You lost me at omelet.
Oh, you didn't have those? It's this absolutely delicious little fried egg dish where you...
No more. I beg of you. I cannot hear about one more radar or UDZ or...
Oh, you're right. I didn't explain that. It stands for Unidentified Danger Zone. They're... sorry.
Enough! So many words, but despite your volubility, you have utterly failed in answering the one question I actually asked. How did you break the barrier?
Well, a guy's got to have some secrets, Lord... Can I call you Val?
I am not a lord, and my title is Valtrax the Unbound.
You got it, Val. Besides, you didn't answer my question either.
What question again?
Guess I did lay a bit much on you. Right, well, let's try this again then, shall we? Red held out a hand towards me with a meaningful weight. What do you say about teaming up against humanity? Chapter 2, End. There it was. I hope you had fun, and I hope you have questions. If you'd like to support the work and continue seeing/hearing it, I'd love it if you could leave a like or comment, or even share it with someone. Thanks again, and please have a day.